Hello and welcome. The Airbus A380, the world's largest passenger aircraft, is a technical masterpiece that changed aviation forever. With space for over 800 passengers on 2 levels, it is a symbol of innovation, size and luxury. How did a bold vision become one of the most impressive aircraft in history? Join us on a journey through the fascinating history of the Superjumbo and let's test it in Flight Simulator 2024. The largest and most impressive community project, the fly-by-wire A380, brings the Superjumbo into the virtual world with realistic details and features. With continuous updates and a dedicated developer community, the A380 is constantly being improved to perfectly capture the complex systems and unique feeling of flight of the original. To test the Airbus, we go to Airbus Hamburg Finkenwerder Airport. Airbus 380 aircraft have been flying to the airport since 2007 for the purpose of interior fitting, painting and delivery. A perfect area to test the Jumbo. flightsim.to has a great scenery for this which we use. Of course, the link to the free download is in the video description. The flight model looks gigantic. With a length of over 70 meters and a wingspan of 80 meters, it looks very impressive even in the flight simulator. Fly-by-wire's feature list is also huge. A fully functioning flight management and navigation system, core aircraft systems and failure simulations, flight control surfaces and wing flex simulation, protection features and enhanced awareness, and much more make this project one of the largest in Flight Simulator. The optimal version for installation is the Development 4K. It already works fantastically in Flight Simulator 2024. The 8K version should only be used if you have a really powerful system, as this version requires a lot of graphics power. It offers highly detailed textures and a carefully designed 3D model that realistically reflects the complex details of the Airbus A380. Particularly impressive are the finely crafted surface structures, such as the rivets, panels and shades, which appear authentic in different lighting conditions. Thanks to modern graphics technologies, such as physically based rendering, reflections and material properties of the outer shell and cockpit are displayed extremely realistically, which visually takes the flight experience to a new level. Once in the cockpit, activate the hidden button behind the pilot's seat to activate the teddy bear as co-pilot. Without him, a test flight would be impossible. The overhead panel is constructed almost identically to the A320. After we have switched on the batteries, we make sure that we supply the Jumbo with ground power. Then we switch on the navigation computers, and while the plane starts up, we take a look at our flight plan. Simbrief.com is still the easiest way to calculate all the data for the flight automatically. To do this, you need a free account on the Simbrief website. Then go to New Flight and enter the departure and destination airports, which are the same in this case. Under the aircraft type item, select the fly-by-wire A380. On this test flight, we will keep the number of passengers and fuel to a minimum in order to achieve the lowest possible weight. A suitable route is chosen, and we are ready. In the flypad, you link your Simbrief ID in the settings and all data is automatically loaded into the aircraft. In the settings, you can also link your GSX if you use it. GSX improves all ground services like pushback, catering, refueling, baggage loading and marshalling, visible animated passengers, cargo loading, follow me cars, tow bar pushback, de-icing, underground refueling, walk-in gates and more. The A380 is already fully compatible with GSX in Flight Simulator 2024. We noticed a small bug that caused the fuel truck not to drive away automatically after refueling, but the rest already works fantastically. For safety reasons, we are only taking 10 passengers on our test flight today. An exciting flight awaits us. Back in the cockpit, we prepare our flight management system for takeoff. The system is very intuitive and similar to all other Airbus aircraft. After we have requested the company flight plan from Simbrief, we edit our departure and arrival data and our flight plan is ready. We leave out the real weather data because in the test flight, we fly with a weather preset in absolutely calm winds to achieve optimal results. In the fuel and load menu, we import the data while our few passengers should already have made themselves comfortable in the cabin. The fly-by-wire Airbus does not yet have a performance calculation, but here too we can use simbrief.com and calculate it there. We don't stick to the checklists completely in this video because that would take too long. I've linked a few free checklists in the video description. In the overhead panel, we now switch on the fuel pumps, make sure that no white light is visible and adjust the exterior lighting. We now switch on the accelerated processing unit and wait until it starts up. After that, we can disconnect from the external power supply and prepare to start the engine. We prepare the autopilot panel and call the pushback truck via GSX Pro. During pushback, we start engines 1 and 2 and let them ramp up. While the other two engines also start, we take a quick look at our test flight. What exactly are we planning? With a short flight over the North Sea to Denmark and back, we test extreme flight positions and maximums and the behaviour in the event of engine failures. Using real data from Airbus, we compare them with the simulation aircraft from fly-by-wire. How real is the flight simulator in 2024? After successful engine start, we now deactivate the APU, switch on the transponder and radar and arm the auto brakes and speed brakes. To ensure that no important steps are forgotten during the takeoff procedures, the fly-by-wire Airbus also has a well-developed internal checklist system, some of which can also be processed automatically. Let us now begin the test flight in the hope that we will arrive safely back here in Hamburg. Now let's embark on our performance flight. With empty weight and minimal fuel, ideal weather conditions and calm conditions, we try to compare the values achieved in Airbus test flights. During takeoff, we give maximum thrust and try to hold the brakes for as long as possible to let the Jumbo take off as quickly as possible.
V1.
We notice that it takes off quickly. With a takeoff distance of 3,100 feet, it is far below the test flights conducted by Airbus and which were recorded. In a leveled, stable flight at 5,000 feet, we now look at the maximum angle of attack and the bank angle of the giant Jumbo. Despite the immense size, astonishing values were achieved in Airbus test flights. Despite maximum movements of the side stick, we notice how the fly-by-wire system counteracts and keeps the aircraft stable. Even at a bank angle of 65 degrees, it remains stable in the air. This value seems to be exactly in line with the values of the Airbus test flights. We deactivate the auto thrust and accelerate the Airbus to the limit. By pulling the side stick as hard as possible, we now try to achieve the highest angle of attack. The fly-by-wire system slows us down. We don't get above 30 degrees, which is below the values of the real test flights. However, I'm not sure whether the safety systems there have been deactivated. The maximum speed reached in an A380 was Mach 0.96 during a test flight at 35,000 feet, albeit in a controlled descent. In leveled flight, it was Mach 0.89. Let's climb and see if the fly-by-wire Airbus also reaches these values. In level flight, we approach the speed limit with the autopilot. Then, we deactivate the auto thrust and give maximum thrust to the engines. It takes a while, but it stops at Mach 0.91. It matches the real values exactly. As we approach the next test at maximum altitude, we have a little time to look at the history and development of the Superjumbo. Its development began in the 1990s with the aim of creating a particularly efficient wide-body aircraft as an alternative to the Boeing 747. To carry the enormous weight of up to 600 tons, the Airbus was equipped with a new type of wing construction made of composite materials and advanced high-lift systems. In 2007, Singapore Airlines was the first airline to put the Airbus into regular service. The complex production required the transport of huge components from all over Europe by ship, train, and special truck to Toulouse for final assembly. Despite its capacity of over 850 passengers, demand fell short of expectations as many airlines preferred smaller, more fuel-efficient aircraft. In 2019, Airbus announced that it would cease production, and the last example was delivered in 2021. Today, the A380 is returning to many airlines as high passenger demand after the pandemic makes it economical again. His legacy remains as a technological masterpiece that changed air travel forever. During the test phase of the Airbus A380 in 2006 high-altitude test at Addis Ababa Bole International Airport in Ethiopia. However, there is no specific public information on whether the A380's maximum service ceiling of 43,000 feet was reached or exceeded during these tests. Let's see how high our fly-by-wire Airbus can go. The autopilot takes us to 46,000 feet without any problem. We deactivate it and give maximum thrust to reach the limit. We managed to climb just over 50,000 feet before the speed becomes too low. It's hard to say if it's real since there's no data on it. The Airbus A380 is considered one of the safest commercial aircraft in the world. Since it entered service in 2007, there has not been a single total loss of the aircraft resulting in fatalities. However, there have been a few incidents, the most serious of which occurred on November 4th, 2010.
The Superjumbo jet was en route from Singapore to Sydney with 459 passengers and crew when an engine appeared to explode.
I've had 35 years of flying experience, and this is the first time I've had an engine fail like this. You are safe, the aircraft is safe.
The extent of the damage became clear on landing.
Shortly after takeoff, one of the 4 Rolls-Royce engines exploded. Debris pierced the wings and damaged several systems. The explosion damaged important hydraulic lines and fuel tanks, causing leaks and limited controllability. After around 2 hours in the air, the crew managed to bring the aircraft safely back to Singapore. Despite this incident, the Airbus is one of the safest passenger aircraft in existence. According to Airbus documents, the Superjumbo can remain stable in the air even with 3 engine failures. Let's test it in the fly-by-wire Airbus by switching off 3 engines and see what happens. We switch on the APU to replace the failed generators. Amazingly, with only 1 Rolls-Royce Trent engine running, the Jumbo remains stable in the air at 10,000 feet. Only after a long time does it slowly lose a little speed. So it is possible to continue the flight with only 1 engine. Ten minutes later, we are on the final approach to runway 33 of Airbus Hamburg Finkenwerder. We are running low on fuel, but still no message appears on the displays. Probably a bug that will be fixed soon. Like the A320, the Jumbo also has an automatic landing system. Airbus says that this system still works even if 2 engines fail. Let's simulate whether the autopilot can still land the plane automatically with 2 engines failing. At the same time, we set the automatic brake to maximum. Since we now have an almost absolute empty weight, it would be interesting to know how long the runway the Jumbo needs to come to a standstill. In a real test flight, values of less than 3,200 feet were determined.
100, 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, retard, 5.
Everything works fantastically. The Autolannd system sets us down on the landing threshold with a descent rate of almost 300 feet per minute. After about 4,200 feet, we get the Jumbo to stop. This value also roughly corresponds to the realistic performance data. We have completed our performance flight and are beginning to deboard. I think our few passengers today are happy to be back on the ground. The Jumbo has proven that it is still capable of flying even with 3 engine failures, an impressive aircraft. A thought occurs to me. It is extremely unlikely, but what would happen if all 4 engines were on fire? A complete failure, which is theoretically almost impossible. The Jumbo has a fantastic glide ratio despite its size. On the internet, we find a glide ratio of 17:1. That means if we were at an altitude of 10,000 feet at a cruise speed of 250 knots under ideal conditions and empty weight, we would theoretically be able to glide for about 32 miles before making an emergency landing. A very simple calculation, but with many unknown variables. Should we try it? We have absolute empty weight and mark a point on the map that is about 30 miles from runway 33. Let's try it to see how well the fly-by-wire Airbus is simulated. We take our Colossus into the air again, and after taking off from runway 33, we reach the required altitude of 10,000 feet and approach the marked point on the map at 250 knots. This time, we are accompanied by a Tornado from the German Air Force, a model from the developers India Fox Deco Visual Simulations, one of the few aircraft that has also been perfectly implemented in multiplayer for the Flight Simulator 2024. The sound is fantastic. You immediately feel safe with this Tornado at your side. We are now leveled at 10,000 feet at a speed of 250 knots, approximately 29 miles east of Airbus Airport Hamburg Finkenwerder, aligned with runway 23. Let's now simulate the absolutely unrealistic case of all engines failing and see if we survive. We go to the overhead panel and remove the cover from all 4 fire extinguishing systems. After the system is triggered, the thrust on all engines should immediately disappear. Shortly afterwards, the generators also fail and the plane no longer supplies enough power. Panic slowly sets in. In absolute darkness, we try to find and activate the switches for the APU. When editing the final video, I noticed something else. Since we had set the barometer to standard pressure from cruise flight, we were actually at the wrong altitude. Instead of being at 10,000 feet, we were only at just under 9,000. A really stupid mistake, but now it's too late to abort. Tons of new errors appear on the eCam. My lack of knowledge of emergency procedures makes it pointless to process each of these messages. I concentrate on putting the Jumbo into a controlled descent so as not to lose too much speed. Finally, the APU starts and the Jumbo is supplied with sufficient power again. The faulty systems gradually appear on the displays. The hydraulics are failing, and that will be our biggest problem. Without flaps, spoilers and auto brakes, it will be incredibly difficult to control the aircraft. We activate the chronometer to at least record the time until the crash. We set the transponder to 7700 for an emergency flight, and by now we're falling through the sky at over 2,000 feet per minute at 200 knots.
Traffic, traffic. Traffic, traffic.
The speed still drops significantly, and the autopilot switches off automatically. At this point, there is real panic in the plane. Luckily, I managed to activate the autopilot again and set the sync rate to a stable level. Now to the expected problem, the landing gear can no longer be extended automatically. Like all Airbuses, the Airbus also has an emergency system. Even without sufficient hydraulics, the landing gear can be extended manually using gravity. I hope that this system is already integrated into the fly-by-wire. It is a bit difficult to trigger because the 2 protective flaps have to be removed first. But luckily it works and the landing gear extends. The climb rate increases and the autopilot switches off again. It's difficult to keep track of things. The extended landing gear slows us down a lot. Another factor we forgot to take into account when calculating. I should have extended it much later, but now it's too late. We can see Finkenwerder on the horizon, but it's clear that we can't reach it now. Hamburg's international airport is 7 miles ahead. However, we're almost over it, and it's too late to aim for runway 23.
$2,500.
We don't have enough time to fly a circuit. The speed is already just above stall. Absolute panic. To avoid crashing into a populated area, I decide to land on runway 33, which is directly to our right. However, the curve is too tight for a good approach. But there is no other option. $1,000.
500.
Pull up,
400.
pull up, pull up,
300.
pull up,
200.
pull up, pull up, pull up,
100.
pull
90.
up,
80.
pull
70.
up.
60. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10. 5. 10. 5.
I can't do it. With a speed of more than 2,000 feet per minute and a speed just before stall, I can't flare. Luckily, it's only a simulation. The survival rate would certainly not have been high. The first attempt I made shows that the calculations are correct. In this attempt, I couldn't find the emergency click spot to extend the landing gear. Without the landing gear extended, I reached Finkenwerder in gliding flight without any problems, but my speed was too high on approach.
Pull up,
Without
pull
landing
up,
caps and
too
auto
low
brakes,
terrain,
I
pull
couldn't
up,
slow the plane
too
down
low
and I
terrain,
shot over the
pull up,
runway.
too low terrain,
But I think the
pull
chances
up,
of survival
too low
would be higher
terrain,
there.
pull up, too low terrain,
Runway too
too low
short.
terrain,
Runway too short.
too low terrain,
Runway
too low
too short.
terrain, low terrain,
Runway
too
too
low
short.
terrain, too low
Runway
terrain,
too short.
too low terrain,
Runway too short.
too low terrain,
Runway too short. Runway too short. Runway too short.
400. 300. 200. 100. 90. 80. 70. 60. 50. 30. 20. 40.
Let's get to the summary. The fly-by-wire. A380 has not yet been officially released for Flight Simulator 2024, but what has been seen so far is absolutely convincing. The system depth is impressive and the flight model is also very close to reality. The textures and modelling also look absolutely successful in the 4K version. The only disadvantage is the high performance requirements of the model. But the fly-by-wire community feeds in new updates almost every day. And the Jumbo gets better from update to update. It is definitely one of the biggest projects in Flight Simulator 2024. It is amazing what this community is doing here, and all of this is voluntary work and free for the virtual pilot. Absolutely fantastic. I'll say goodbye with a short formation flight over Dubai. I hope you have fun with the A380. What do you think? Have you already tested it? Write it in the comments. As always, I wish you a nice week and always a safe landing.
Ship 1514 for traffic in the vicinity of the TFR across Juice at 8,500.
Takeoff 8,500 west at 1514.
Ship 1514, rest of route unchanged after that, and you can contact approach 128.5.
75, keep your speed up as much as you can, connect the tower 120.500.
Scout 1059, approaching southwest 1059, contact approach 128.5.
25, southwest 1059.
Is it 360, expect a visual 248. On request, sir, for now, 248. 12 o'clock, 8 miles, southeastbound, be sure to keep the meet to Hamburg. Descend via the Ironman, except maintain 7,000. Descend via the Ironman, except maintain 7,000. Please stay 95 at Cliffy, fly heading 110, vector for south downwind. At Cliffy, heading 110. Traffic 10 o'clock and about 4 miles orbiting the helicopter 7,500. Wings 95, contact SoCal 124.9. 24.9, wings 9. That's out. Exit 360, contact approach 128.5. United 18, sorry, 1960, expect runway 24 right to approach. United 1960 for traffic in the T.